Morning, everybody. Welcome to today's webinar. I am just going to hold on for another minute or two, just to see if we have anybody that is still trying to join. So if you guys can just bear with me for another minute or so, and then we will get started. Thank you. Okay, so seem to have a few people joining now as we speak, so I think it's good enough time to get started. So welcome everybody to today's webinar with myself, Scott. I'm one of the trainers at Teachers to Parents and Community Brands, and we're going to be today going through just a general look at our forms module within Teachers to Parents. So things that we're going to be covering today are some basics on the forms module. So we're going to take a look at a couple of example forms that we've built. So just some examples of what you can use it for. We'll go through some of the components and how they work in one of the more complicated forms we've got, and then we're going to take a little look at how you can sort of view the results from forms, how you can save templates from forms that you've built in the past, and the various ways you can send a form as well. So when you log into your Teachers to Parents system, to get into the Forms module, it is just a case of clicking on the Forms tab, which you will see in the top left-hand corner just here. Now, if you are not subscribed to the Forms module, then you will get a message up to fill in an inquiry to send to our sales team to have a look at the Forms module. There is a free 30-day trial that you can use for the Forms module, just to sort of give it a go before you make any commitments to it. And it just gives you the system for 30 days free of charge, where you can sort of have a play with it, send some forms out and so on. Again, if you are interested in that, then by all means fill the inquiry form out when you click onto the Forms tab. It will appear for you to fill in some details. That goes through to our sales team, and they will be in touch. But for those of you that do have access to forms, when you click onto the Forms tab, you'll be brought to this section here. And one thing that is always worth pointing out within our Forms module is just how intuitive the help section is, because wherever you are within the Forms module, in the top right-hand corner, there's a little blue help icon just here. And when you click on help, the idea behind this help section is that it will tailor itself to suit the section of forms that you are in. So as an example, if we go into the results, so we're looking at results of all forms that have been sent out. If I was to go into the results of a particular form and then click on the help section, as you can see, the help section now tailors itself to the results section. So forms responses, what you can do with them. There's even a little video there. So it's really, really useful to be able to use that help section. Just navigate to the part of the system that you need some assistance with, click on the help icon, and you should be able to find answers there. Obviously, if you can't find the answers you're looking for there, then do by all means get in touch with our support team, who will be happy to answer any questions you have on that subject as well. Actually, I forgot to mention, I do have a colleague on hand today answering questions in the webinar session. So if you do have any questions during the course of today's webinar, you'll see in the GoToWebinar software a little section where you can pose questions to us. My colleague is on hand to answer those as we go through. So when you are in Forms module, you've got these little tabs that go across sort of the top, just above all the forms that you have. So at the moment, we're looking at forms that have results. So these are all forms that have been sent out. We can also look at draft forms. You can also look at archive forms that you've archived because you no longer need them. Creating a new form, you can click on the green button here to create a new blank form, or you can click on this button to create a form from a template, which you may have sort of saved in the system. Maybe it's a form you'd sent out previously. And the idea behind it is when you click on, let's go create new blank form, this is then where you can build the form itself. And the idea of forms is that it is built up of what we call components. There are components for various things. So once you've put in a title for your form, down at the bottom here, you'll see where it says add component to form. And there are various different components that you can add into a form. So for example, a component for text description would just allow you to type some text, which is like an introduction to the form perhaps, so it's quite commonly used there. But then there are other components such as putting in tick boxes, multiple choice options, drop down lists, and so on. So to show you what these look like, we've got a couple of examples. So the first one that we're going to look at is the permission for photographs. This is a really basic form, and it already has some components sort of pre-built into it. So whilst you are building your form, you have the ability to preview it at any point, and this gives you sort of like an end user view, so what the parents would see when you send the form out. So if we click on preview at the bottom here, and this shows you what it will sort of show. So this is just a very simple sort of permission for photographs. There's a little bit of text at the top. Do you give your consent, yes or no? So we say yes, and then please sign below. So the parent, if they were on a desktop computer like we are now, then they can simply click and drag the mouse to sign. If they're on the mobile phone or a tablet, then they can use their finger to sign in this box as well. And then also at the bottom, you will see there's like a little rating system where they can sort of give the form a rating, and then they click next to submit it. So just to have a little look at those sort of components in action. The first part where it says, dear forename, give your consent below. This is a simple text description component. So this is just where you can actually put in some information for the parent to see. So when you are putting some general text in at the start of your form or anywhere in the form, you'll notice that we have these little bits in brackets here. So we've got forename, student forename, and so on. So the student forename one is the main one that you'd probably be using because you're wanting to tailor the forms to particular children. And you'll see that they're in here for student tokens. So for example, you've got the student full name, forename, surname, and so on. And these will basically insert the mail merge into the system. So to put the child's first name in place of that token, it's a little bit like how it is in Teachers to Parents when you use the hash name feature. Underneath, we have this component here is the drop-down. So it is a simple yes or no question. It's a drop-down list of options. So option 1 and option 2 in the drop-down. You can have more options depending on the question that you're asking. You will see at the top where it says column name. The column name is used in the results, which we will look at later. So the question is the actual question that the parents will see, whereas the column name is how you will see it displayed in the results section. So the column name is usually sort of like a shortened version of the question. If you've got quite a long question to ask, you don't necessarily want that question to be the column header in your results table because it will just sort of make the results look a bit untidy when you download them. So the column name, the idea behind it is that you can give it a shorter version of the name. Also in here, you will see this little tick box at the bottom, make this a required input. Now, if you tick that box when adding in a component, you will then see a little red asterisk next to the component itself, and this means that the parent will not be able to submit the form until they have completed that particular component. So as you can see, we've got the asterisk next to the consent option and the signature option as well. So when we preview it, you will see that we have to actually submit the form because we have to sign it, and also because we have to give an answer just there as well. So that's some basics on the sort of introduction to the components and how they work. What we can do then is we can take a little look at the sending page. So if we save this form, it then brings you to this page, which is where we can actually send it. So there's a fair few things to look at on here. So the first one is you can put a due date for your form, so when you want the responses to all be in by. If you do set a due date in the future, you can also set a reminder date where the forms module will simply remind those that haven't filled in the form that they still need to submit a response. You can then use to send the form by email or by text message. These options entirely depend on your subscription to Teachers to Parents. So for those of you that only subscribe to our text messaging system, for example, you will only see the option to send the form by text. Likewise, if there's any of you out there that just use the email side of Teachers to Parents, you'll only be able to see this one as well. Over here, you'll be able to see there's a tick box, candidate responses. If we have this ticked, then parents will be able to edit response once they submitted it. They can re-access the form and change their response if they need to. The parents can also, if you tick this box, they can open the form again and see their entered response. So it kind of works in conjunction with this one as well. And then underneath, allow more than one submission per recipient. So if you're sending forms out to a parent for a particular child, but you want to get more than one result, maybe if you've got more than one parent that wants to fill it in, then you can obviously enable that just there. And then quite importantly, we've got send to. So there's a few options in here for you. So at the moment, we're sending this form to parents regarding the student. And more importantly, at the end, you'll see it says one result per student. That's basically the ideal that you want. You can send to staff as well, or manual contacts in your address book that you've added in. There's two internal ones. So the internal student data one, so the form doesn't get sent and it's for staff use only. So this is for forms that you sort of want to fill in within school just to collect data. Same thing for staff members as well. The form isn't sent and it's for staff as well. Lastly, anonymous. So what happens with the anonymous is that the form doesn't get sent at all. The idea behind this is that when we save it, the system is going to give us a link to a blank version of this form. You can then post that link onto a school website. You could send that link out to parents separately from either another messaging system or via your Teachers to Parents system. And the idea behind it is that it sends a link to a blank version of the form out so that parents can fill it in anonymously. So this is quite handy if you are wanting to get anonymous responses from parents. It's also quite handy for other situations as well. So one of the things that a lot of our customers use the forms module for is they will use them for registration forms for pre-admissions for next year. So you could use this system to build a form with all of the relevant components that you need for a parent that is looking to apply for their child to join the school. What you can do if you do that is, although the form is anonymous, you can actually use these options just underneath here. So for example, if a parent is filling in a form, quote unquote anonymously, you can tick this box and the form, when they fill it in, will prompt them to fill in their name. Quite handy if you are wanting to send out forms to people outside of your Teachers to Parents account, but you also want to capture who it is that is actually submitting the response to you. With the anonymous forms as well, you can put the I am not a robot check in there just to make sure, and you're getting people fill it in genuinely, and you can also prompt for an email address as well as the name. So as I say, a couple of ways you can use the anonymous forms. One of them is if you do want genuinely anonymous responses to something, and then the other option for anonymous forms is it then enables you to use the forms module to capture data from people that are outside of your Teachers to Parents account. From here, you can preview the form as well. And once you are happy with everything in here, if it is an anonymous form, you just click on save and then the system will give you that link for the anonymous form. If you are sending out to parents, you can either click on send now to send the form out instantly to them, or the little arrow just here, you can actually send later. You can repeat schedule as well. So if this was a form that you wanted to go out to parents weekly for, say, 6 weeks at a time, you can repeat the schedule so that the system will send the same form out on whichever selected days per week to the parents. So that's everything from the sending page, and that's everything to look at in the basic form. What we're going to do now is I'm going to click on School Workspace up in the top left here, and it's going to bring us back to our draft section. And we're going to take another look at a form, but this one is going to be a slightly more complicated one. So we've got this form for student medical information here. Now, when we go into here, one thing that you might spot is on this screen, we've actually added an attachment to the form. So when it gets sent out, there will be an attachment for the parents to download. So as you can see, this is for student medical information. So there's a little attachment here regarding allergic reactions in children. Further down, we will see the list of components. And as you can see, there are quite a lot of components in this form for various things. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a preview of the form. Another way you can do the preview is you can either scroll to the bottom and see the preview button sort of down here. Alternatively, you might have spotted as we've been going through this this component form here, this little sidebar here. If we click on the eye icon, it will give you a preview of the form as well. So this is what all these components look like in action. So again, a little bit of text at the start to introduce it. Then we've got these little sort of yellow line barriers between components. You can put those in if you want to separate parts of the form. There's little parts in here, prompt for doctor's name and address, which is where the parents can fill it in. There's a prompt for a telephone number. And then we've got various options here. Does your child wear glasses? So yes, no. Do they suffer from any of the following? So this is like a multiple choice, but they can actually select more than one option. And then we have this this little component here. Does your child have any other medical conditions? And you can say yes, or you can say no. Now, one thing you might have just spotted, if I select no to this question, nothing happens and I can move on to the next question. However, if I say yes, you will see that there is actually another follow-up question that appears in the form. Now, this appears due to a component that we call a rule. So to show you this in action, I'm going to come out of here. And if we scroll down, so here are the two questions. So we have a question here. Does your child have any medical conditions? So this one is a simple, if we edit it, you'll see it's a simple yes or no answer. Okay. And then we have a follow-up question, which is please provide details of the medical conditions. This is just a little prompt for some text. But in between these two components, we have what is called a rule. So if I edit this rule, you'll see what it looks like. The idea behind a rule is that you can choose a question that you want the rule to apply to. So as you can see, if, and then this question, does your child have any medical conditions? You can select any of the other questions you've already put into the form though. So in this situation, we've chosen the question, does your child have any medical conditions? If the answer to that question is, as you can see in the drop down, and then yes, then we want to show another question. So you'll see it's here. Please provide details. And as you can see, it says show is ticked. So it means that if they answer yes to that question, then it's then going to show this follow-up question. But if they answer no, then it isn't going to show that follow-up question. The same works in the other way around. So if you wanted, so for example, if you had a form for a trip and the first question was, does your child want to go on the trip? Do you want to give consent to the child going on the trip? What you could do is with that question, you could have it so that if they say no, then it hides the rest of the form so that they can just submit it rather than filling in all details. So like I say, the rules work in sort of either or scenarios. So you can either have it so that when they answer a particular, when their answer is of a particular way, that it shows components or hides components, depending on your preference. Okay, so that is pretty much how to sort of add the rules into the system. Rules are probably the more complicated part of the forms module, but once you get to grips with them and how they work, it does make the forms module a little bit more versatile because it means that you don't have to have a really long and complicated form that parents have to navigate through. You can have the form sort of dictate the questions based on the parents' responses. Another thing for the rules as well is that when you are adding them into the form, they will work in the order that they appear in the form. So ideally, you want to add them underneath or between the questions that they apply to. So for example, with this one, it is between those two questions. And the good thing here is that you can actually move components around a form. So once you've added all the components in, if you wanted to reorder the questions, then it is a simple case of where the 6 dots are to the left of each component, you can simply grab with your mouse and drag it and drop it to a different section in the form. And that's what we advise you do with the rules as well. So if you've got several rules in a form, just make sure that you put them next to the question that they apply to, just so that they work in the right order. And again, at any point, if you are wanting to check that you've added the components in the right way, all that you have to do is click on the preview and you can have a little look and see what it would look like. So that's everything regarding components. So the final thing that we're going to take a look at is the results of some forms. So if we click onto the results tab just here, we will see that we've got some results for the permission for photographs that we set up earlier. To the right of that, if we click on results, we will see all of the responses that have been submitted by the parents so far. So the column headers, as you can see, when we were adding the components in, these are the column headers that you can fill in when putting the component in. So this is how it appears on the results. And you'll see all the answers that have been submitted by the parents here with the signatures and so on. So what you can do is, if you ever need to, you can edit the response. So if a parent had filled something in error and they wanted you to correct it for them, just to the left of the child's name, you will see this little edit button. And when we click onto this, it will bring up the form that they filled in. From here, you can change the options. So you can change, say, for example, the consent. And then at the very bottom, you'll see where it says reason for edit. In here, you could put in something like, maybe a parent called in form filled an error or something like that. And then you can submit the change. Alternatively, you can delete the response if the parent had opted to no longer fill in the form, they just wanted to delete the response from it, or if you did want to at school as well. From the results, down in the bottom left, there are some actions that you can sort of partake in. When we click onto actions, one of the common ones that we do get with our support team is how to save a form that you've previously used so that you can use it again in the future. And you will see from the results, we've got this option to save the form as a template. So this is very, very handy if you've spent all the time and effort creating a form and sending it out, rather than creating it again from scratch. Just go into the results of your previous form and save it as a template from there. What you can also do is you can add recipients to that form. So if you've sent the form out already, but you maybe missed some people out, you can add recipients and send it to them from there as well. You can download the results, and they will download into an Excel spreadsheet for you so that you can do with them what you need to do. You can print all the responses as well, and also you can print a blank version of the form if you wanted somebody to fill in a hard copy of the form as well. Once you are done with the form, you can archive it from here as well. Which is a handy thing to do so that your results section doesn't get too clogged up with responses. For example, in this demonstration account here, we've got quite a lot of sort of forms in there. So what you can do is we can sort of tick a box from here for ones that we want to archive. In the bottom left, you go to selected and archive the selected forms. This doesn't delete them. It will just archive them into this section here. From the archive section, you can hard delete them from the system if you want to. So that is pretty much everything that we wanted to go through today, sort of showing you the system. Again, I will finish up by taking a look at the help icon. As I say, it's a very, very useful tool because it will show you all the help you need based on the section that you're in. There are various videos on the system as well, which you will see in the help section. These videos will appear when you are on sort of the main menu of the system. But also you'll be able to find the videos within our help center. So we're in the help section of the forms module, but if you go to the help section of teachers to parents in the top right hand corner where it says help here, the first tab that says support, and we've got a little link to our support website just here, which will launch our support site. And from here, we have all kinds of information. This is all to do with teachers to parents, not just the forms module, but every sort of product we do in the teachers to parents range. You'll see videos and tutorials, guides, and so on, all available to you there. And of course, if you do still need any help or if you have any other questions, you can give our support team a call. So that's everything that we need to go through for today. So thank you very much for your time, everybody. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to pause to see if any questions have been asked but not yet answered by my colleague as we went through. Also, if you have any questions that you've not asked yet, I'm just going to pause for another minute or so just to give anybody some time to ask some questions. And then if we don't have any, or if we've answered them all, we'll end the webinar. So thanks very much for your time today, everybody. And if anyone has any questions, feel free to type them out now. Okay, so it does look like that any questions that have been asked during the course of the webinar, it does look like my colleague has answered those. If you do have any questions following today's webinar, then do feel free to reach out to our support team. They'll be happy to answer those. Everybody that was registered to the webinar today will receive a recording of it as well. So you'll be able to look back on it should you wish to sort of revisit a particular section. But that is everything for today. So thanks everyone for attending, and we look forward to seeing you on our next webinar. Thank you.